Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and happy 2021. It is finally the new year and it is my first time filming in the new year and I am so excited to be here, to be filming, to be uploading in 2021. Last year was kind of a shit show and I'm just glad it's over and here we are. This is actually the second video I filmed this year. The first one was supposed to be like a chit-chatty get ready with me, just kind of reflecting on 2020 and like sharing some intentions for 2021, but it turned out a lot more negative than I wanted it to be. It was supposed to be like hopeful and happy and it was just kind of me complaining the whole time. So I scratched that entire video and this is now the first video of 2021 and I thought, what more of a fitting video to start off 2021 than a new makeup releases video. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. The full details of this makeup look is on my Instagram at emily.catherine, Kathryn, but I will share some key features. I used the Pure X Raw Beauty Christie Duality palette and the JD Glow single shadow in the shade Fairy Acid. On my eyes and my lips is the ColourPop lippy pencil in the shade So Happy and the Pat McGrath Labs Opulust gloss in the shade Dreamscape. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about in this video is the new collection from Melt Cosmetics, and that is the Blueprint collection. It is inspired by their Blueprint stacks, eyeshadow stack, and they've kind of been going through this thing where they've been like taking all their stacks and making them into full-size palettes, which I think is a really cool and interesting concept, and it kind of expands the line a little bit and expands on the concept of the stack. And I think that the shades in this Blueprint palette are so pretty and I really want to pick this palette up. I finally bought a Melt Cosmetics palette this past year towards the end of 2020 and it is amazing. I love the formula and I'm really excited to dive a little bit deeper into Melt Cosmetics in 2021. And I think that there are also two of their gel pot eyeliners coming out with this collection, which I am less interested in, but I do think that the colors are really super pretty, and so that palette will definitely be going on to my wish list. The next thing is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Palette Volume 2, and this is something that I am actually anti-hauling, not just because it is like meant for deeper skin tones, but because apparently all the shades in it are existing shades in their line that they just pulled and threw into this palette, and I have a few comments to make about that. One, if the shades already existed in their line, why couldn't they have made this palette a little bit sooner, you know, throwing it together? And two, why didn't they make new shades? Like, I feel like that's just almost like an extra slap in the face to not even like create new shades and to go even deeper, because we all know that Hourglass has been getting called out towards the end of 2020 for their lack of inclusivity, which rightfully so. They are one of the whitest brands, and I know that I did purchase a little 4-pan palette from them, but I did make the decision after I purchased that palette and I started looking into some of the Hourglass things a little bit more to not support them until there seems to be a more conscious effort towards change. So I'm just kind of a little put off by the fact that they didn't create new shades. Like, they literally just pulled from their existing line to make this palette. The next thing that is actually going on my wish list is the new e.l.f. Cosmetics Mint collection. They're coming out with like a whole line of mint themed things, and I'm actually really excited for the minty bite-sized palette. That is what is specifically going to be going on to my wish list. I love green eyeshadow. I've been digging green eyeshadow for like the past few months, and I literally want to wear green eyeshadow like every single day, and I think that that little minty green palette would be a really cute and nice addition to my collection, because I don't actually really have any minty green eyeshadows besides like 2 shades. The next thing going on my wish list is something that I totally did not expect to see or to be released when it was released, and that is the Fenty powder foundation. Now, I don't actually own any true powder foundations, and I have been wanting to own one and I have just kind of been looking around at different brands trying to figure out which one I think would suit my skin type the best, and I am really interested in this Fenty powder foundation, and I love Fenty as a brand. I think that they have done really amazing things in the makeup industry, and I love supporting Fenty, so I definitely am interested in this powder foundation. Obviously the shade range is amazing, but if you look at some of the deeper shades, they're like, make me tear up. They are so deep and rich and smooth looking and beautiful, and I really want to try the foundation. The next thing is going to be going on my anti-haul list, and that is the Too Faced Be My Lover palette. So I know for the Too Faced holiday collection, they released a lot of, I think like 4 to 6 of these little mini like 6 or 8 pan eyeshadow palettes, and this is not fact. I haven't looked into this at all, but I'm kind of assuming that this is like their Valentine's Day collection just because of the name, and that's totally fine. But why are they releasing all these small palettes? I watched a few reviews on these small palettes, and it seems pretty like generally accepted that the quality is not the best, and typically in Too Faced like holiday releases, they don't have the best quality, and really the best eyeshadow quality that you get from Too Faced is in their like big metal tin eyeshadow palettes, and so I'm just kind of wondering why do they keep releasing these small palettes. Next up is the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter collection, and I think that this collection is actually really, it's pretty it's really pretty, but my one like thing about it is that I feel like the eyeshadow palettes in it are so boring. I feel like it looks like every other Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow quad, and I feel like with what the collection is, like I'm assuming it's supposed to be like inspired by like old Hollywood and like that type of makeup. Maybe I could be totally wrong, but I feel like the color stories just don't really fit. So I don't know. I have really been wanting to try the Charlotte Tilbury, the pressed powder that they have, because apparently it is like magic and is so beautiful. And I did try the Hollywood Flawless Filter as samples a few months ago, and it was super pretty. But I just think that for Charlotte Tilbury, the color stories in the quads could have been a little bit more exciting. Next up is something that I haven't honestly even quite decided if it is on my wish list or my anti-haul list, but I just wanted to talk about it, and maybe as I talk about it, I will talk myself into one or the other. And that is the new ColourPop 5-pan eyeshadow palettes. So I think it was Makeup Just for Fun posted a size comparison to some other like mini palettes, and some of the palettes that she compared them to were like the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes, the mini Natasha Denona 5-pan palettes, and then the full-size Natasha Denona 5-pan palettes, and they were about the same size as the mini Natasha Denona 5-pan palettes, a little bit bigger than the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes. And I think that it's an interesting way for ColourPop to go, but for the first release of this product, I wish that the color stories would have been a little bit more interesting. There were like 2 of the 5-pan palettes that I thought were really gorgeous and weren't looking like every other ColourPop palette ever. They're still pretty similar to the other ColourPop palettes, but like they didn't look like exactly the same. So I could potentially be interested in picking those up. I just don't actually know yet. But I just wish for their first release they would have had like thrown in 2 to 3 more interesting, unique, fun color stories instead of keeping them all like pretty basic and, might I say, boring. The next thing that I want to talk about is just so unbelievably random. It is a collab that I literally never thought that I would see, and that is MAC Cosmetics and Sims, like the video game Sims. It's just such a weird collection, and I want to talk about the eyeshadow palette because it is literally so boring. Like, when I think of Sims, it is not at all anything like what the eyeshadow palette is. Like, they could have thrown in like a lime green and made it a really fun palette with Sims, but no, they didn't. They had to make it like boring mauves. And I also feel like I saw somewhere that someone said it is basically a palette that they have had before, like almost exactly, which with a palette that basic, I feel like it's not that difficult to do. But one, it's just a really odd collab to have, and two, it is like one of the most boring collabs that I have ever seen in my entire life. I realized I only had like four things that I only actually spoke positively about in this video, but that's okay. I'm trying to be more of a conscious consumer this year, so if I don't add that many things to my wish list, I'm totally okay with it. But this last thing that I wanted to talk about is this new Wet n Wild tinted hydrator, and I think you're all gonna know what I'm gonna say. The shade range is abysmal. There are like 6 or 8 shades. I can't actually remember for sure, but the shade distribution is not there. The darkest shade is not that dark, and you know, it's getting so old seeing these awful shade ranges. And yes, I understand that it is a tint, it is not like a super full coverage foundation, so you can get away with using a shade that might be like 1 to 2 shades lighter, 1 to 2 shades darker, but to only have like 6 to 8 shades, I just feel like that's a bit much. When I look at a shade range of colors, I tend to like look at the darkest shade, and I kind of think like, okay, like what gurus, influencers can I think of who this darkest shade might work for? And I was thinking like the darkest shade in this might work for Jackie Aina, and Jackie Aina is not the darkest influencer out there, like by far. There are people much darker than her, and if she is the darkest shade, and again, I would just like to say, I'm not looking at a picture of the shade range in front of me right now. I film on my phone, so therefore I cannot be on my phone while I film. Actually, let me borrow my boyfriend's phone. Let's look at this. Okay, here we go. I'm looking at it right now. There are 8 shades, and now that I'm looking at it again, the darkest shade would absolutely be too light for Jackie Aina. That is just like, oh my, it's just like offensive. I can't even like express how like frustrating it is at this point to say that like we are currently now in 2021 and there are still shade ranges like this. I like, who approved that shade range? That's what I want to know. Like, who actually looked at this shade range and said, yeah, good for a first release? And again, I get it's a first release, but I feel like Fenty Beauty back in like 2016 set the standard for shade ranges with first releases, and we still are not seeing things that are living up to that standard. As I was scrolling through Trend Mood though, I did see one more thing that I want to throw in here because it actually caught my attention, and I think it is a really, really, really pretty thing, I guess. And these are new products from Becca. There is the Light Shifter Dewing Tint. Yeah, it is called Dewing. Okay, the Becca Light Shifter Dewing Tint and the Becca Light Shifter Finishing Veil. So this Dewing Tint looks really interesting. It doesn't look like it's like a base product, so like it doesn't look like it's like a foundation or a tinted moisturizer or anything. It looks like something more like a Hollywood Flawless filter or something like that, but it has a really good shade range. So it has 8 shades and they're like pretty evenly distributed shades, and it has a really dark shade and a really light shade and then everything in between. So Wet n Wild, I understand that this is a wildly different product from what we just talked about, but take notes on a good shade range. And then this light shifter finishing veil kind of looks like the Hourglass ambient lighting setting powder, you know? There are 6 shades for that, and it also looks like a really well evenly distributed shade range. So it has I'm not going to show you my phone, I know the picture's on the screen right now. So it has 2 darker shades, 2 medium shades, and then 2 lighter shades. And again, I feel like it's perfectly distributed, and I definitely think that they could add some more shades in the future, but for the first release of this product, I am happy with the distribution of the shades. Sounds really interesting. It looks really pretty, and it literally sounds almost exactly like the Hourglass ambient lighting setting powder. I'm gonna read what it says on Trend Mood. It says a weightless setting powder with a filtering effect and a satin finish infused with hyaluronic acid, crystallized licorice, and green tea. Light shifting pigments absorb and reflect light to diffuse and illuminate skin with a satin finish. That sounds absolutely incredible. So that is absolutely also going on my wish list. I'd probably do the second lightest shade called Star Child. It says light with neutral undertones, and that's typically what I go for. Yeah, wow, I'm glad I hopped on to see that real quick. I also realized, did I not write this down somewhere? I didn't write this in here. So one thing that I did want to touch on that I guess I just forgot to write down on my notebook is the Lunar New Year collections. I always think that Lunar New Year collections are just so much better than any other holiday release. So just even scrolling through Trend Mood right now, there's Charlotte Tilbury is coming out with lipsticks, and I think that their existing shades, no, they actually seem like new shades, and then the Magic Cream in a different type of packaging. The shades are kind of boring, but the packaging is really pretty. We also have, so Pat McGrath is coming out with a lip kit that isn't being marketed as a Lunar New Year collection, but the packaging totally gives that vibes, and it's a red lipstick. So Fenty Beauty is coming out with a new set. It is the New Year Glow Lip and Luminizer set, including a gloss bomb and a diamond bomb. Guerlain and also Lush came out with some things, and who else? And Gucci. Guerlain and Gucci came out with some lipsticks, and then Lush came out, with some bath products. Makeup Forever came out with some powders and limited edition Lunar New Year packaging. Clinique came out with they come out with a highlighter every year for Lunar New Year, and this year it is the year of the ox, and they have the Cheek Pop highlighter in Gold Celebration Pop. Beautylish, I feel always comes out with these super expensive brushes, but they came out with one for Lunar New Year. It's the Becca powder brush. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. Dolce & Gabbana. Oh no, that's Valentine's Day. Never mind. I'm not seeing anything else. Oh, Glam Glow. And oh goodness, that's actually a lot. So Givenchy, Glam Glow, Replica. They all came out with Lunar New Year stuff as well. I think that's all that I'm seeing right now for Lunar New Year collections, but the whole point of bringing all that up was just for me to say that I love Lunar New Year collections. I think that they are so pretty. The packaging is always the deep red, and it is so gorgeous, and I always feel yes, the tones and the shades are the same, but I don't know, it's just, for me, it's a lot more visually appealing and almost inspirational than holiday collections, and I just really love looking at Lunar New Year collections. So although I probably won't pick anything up from any of those Lunar New Year collections, I do think that they're all so pretty, and they definitely caught my attention. So that is it for this new makeup releases, starting off 2021 talking about some makeup, adding some stuff to my wish list, talking shit about some stuff, and I think that's all I have for you. If you did enjoy this video, I hope you will give it a thumbs up and even maybe subscribe before you go, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!